Hello and welcome to the In the Money Players Podcast. This is our show for the racing on Saturday, February 13th. It's currently February 12th, Valentine's Day weekend, President's Day weekend, whatever you want to call it. A lot of kids out of school today, including Perrin, including Austin, which is why JK will be getting the week off. But if you want to get his thoughts, at least on the Santa Anita races, you can, of course, check in over at twinspires.com via their expert picks. We've got three guests. We're going to be looking at racing from Laurel, from the fairgrounds, and also, of course, from California, from our friends and partners at Santa Anita and Golden Gate and the Golden Hour Pick 4 and Double. Beginning to that later in the show, we kick things off with a guest, not just a returning guest this week to these In the Money airwaves. She has her own show, Talk Racing to Me. She's on the Stronach 5 show that we dropped yesterday for the racing happening today. And now she's here to talk about one of Laurel's biggest days of the year. Couple of grade threes, a bunch of stakes action. I'm talking, of course, about Naomi Tukker. Naomi, how are you?
I'm good, Pete. It's weird to actually see you. I'm so used to talking with you without being on camera. So hello, I can see you today.
Yeah, you get a view of the world famous Brooklyn bunker right here.
I know.
So that's exciting.
I like the sign. The In the Money podcast sign. I think that's...
Others have pointed this out, but if you look closely at the sign, I ran out of letters. So there's an N there in the middle of money that's really just a U turned upside down. And I got really desperate with the M for money. No, that is not an upside down W, as I've been accused. It's worse than that. It's two upside down V's. So if anybody has a light box with some extra letters, reach out to me, at Lose Boldly.
You gave it all away. I would have never noticed. Also, I don't expect it that closely. I think your background is much better than my office right now, but I had to improvise. I would have gone and sat down in the grandstand with the gorgeous Laurel Park view with the glass windows and everything behind me, but I ran out of time. So here we are.
There you go. This works. This works well. Your microphone is rocking and rolling. You sound really good. You look really good. You excited for this big Saturday at Laurel?
I am. There's a few horses that are looking to continue their streaks. Really strong card thus far. I hope it stays together because it looks really, really intriguing, and I can't wait to see a couple of my favorites return nonetheless. I love Street Loot, and of course, Hello Beautiful, the Maryland's darling, basically coming back as well. And just a couple of tough Maryland-bred horses taking on some outsiders, some New York trained horses coming in as well. So certainly looking forward to it. And hopefully it's not going to be too cold. I do think it's going to get quite chilly over the weekend here. There's still snow on the ground at present.
You can get much more from Naomi in terms of her thoughts on this whole card, either on her Twitter. She'll be sending out selections Saturday morning at Naomi Tukker. You can see it right there on the screen. You can also watch her on the simulcast feed and get her thoughts throughout the card. But on this show, we're going to kick off looking at Laurel Park race number 5, scheduled post time 2:23. We're on the dirt about a mile and a 16th. 4 and up fillies and mares, the Nellie Moore Stakes with 100,000 in the pot. And Naomi, we're going to have you kick this one off. How do you see it?
There's two sort of main horses that I have interest in. I'll start with my top pick, who's drawn towards the outside. That's a 9, Lucky Strike. Most likely going to take a fair bit of money here for Michael Trombetta. And Michael Trombetta, his stable has been absolutely firing since the new meet. You can see 24% winners. He had a bit of a lull last year, and now it just seems like he's having all these horses ready to go, and they're running and they're backing up on their form. And this is a filly that has a beautiful sort of long, floaty stride to her. She really reaches and glides over the ground. She is drawn to the outside. We do know that that bend comes up very quickly over the mile and 16 at Laurel, but I'm not too worried because she's not going to go to the lead. She's just going to slide in behind them and actually will be able to hence stay into the clear and possibly not really get boxed in or maybe get in a little bit tight. And I do think there's also plenty of pace for her to run into, which she does enjoy. So she's my top selection in this, and she's just done nothing wrong since joining the Trombetta stable. She was trained before by Raymond Morales, and Michael Trombetta just kind of like grabbed her, picked her up and went, go girl. And she's done phenomenal for him. Now, the other filly that I'm interested in, filly, 4-year-old Landing Zone on the rail, because the rail, if you have speed, is such a coveted position here at Laurel Park over that mile and 16, because that turn comes up so quickly and there can definitely be a bit of scramble towards the outside. But she has that rail. I like the cut back to the mile and 16. She was well placed early in the Alaire du Pont. Maybe I would have liked to have seen a little bit more strong late there. She faded a little bit. But aside from that, I think she'd be very intriguing here as well.
We have the same top pick. I'm with you on Lucky Stride. Just looks to have a big figure and form edge, plenty of pace to set up the late run. And I was hoping that maybe there's enough late pace that we can get sort of a proper meltdown here. And maybe we can get number 4, Lucky Move, to run into the number with Lucky Stride. Lucky Move, a stakes winner in New York, didn't get a great setup last time. I could see these two rolling through the lane and getting somewhere in the number, but definitely for me, preference for number 9, Lucky Stride. Hopefully we can start off this pick 5 with a winning selection there for both of us with that one. What kind of a price do you think Lucky Stride is going to be in the spot?
Oh, that's actually quite an interesting one. Let me excuse me, I don't have the prices on my form here just yet, so I haven't looked at that yet.
2-1 on the morning line, and I was thinking we might be lucky to get.
Yeah, unfortunately, if you're looking at these horses that have been racing at this track, well, she raced here 2 back, and of course Michael Trombetta, they're gonna take a little bit of money, especially because they know the horses, and Lucky Stride, she's done so well. She's probably gonna be quite short here. I was thinking to myself 2-1, maybe 9-5.
I'd take it.
Let's hope we get some value on her.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good field. There's a couple of sort of horses in here that could jump on, as you mentioned. I like the 7 Wicked Awesome a little bit as well. I think she ran a cracker of a race in the Alaire du Pont last time. And if she gets a similar kind of trip, she can be quite interesting here, because she's just a little bit closer than, for example, Lucky Stride would be, or the number 4 that you were talking about, Lucky Move. She's just a touch quicker than them early, but still shows a really good late kick as well. So I had a little bit of interest in her. So there's a few in this field that could take a bit of money, but I do think that most people are going to swerve towards the number 9 Lucky Stride. And like I said, no problem that outside draw, because it's not her running style to go forward anyway.
Should be able to drop in and be okay. If I made you grade those picks into A's and B's by number, what would you come up with?
Possibly end up Lucky Stride being the number 1, the A pick, and then any other horses like the number 1 Landing Zone would be a B. I like the 7 as a B as well, and the 4. Those were my 3 underneath. I am going to probably defer to the 9 on the outside, because the pace is going to set up. I think Artful Splatter might show a little bit of speed early as well. So there's just a few that are going to move forward that I think are going to be, helping her in terms of pace setup.
I like the sound of it. Let's move on to race number 6. 253 is the scheduled post for the 7 furlong 3-year-old filly Wide Country Stakes, 100,000 on the line. And you mentioned that you have a runner that you particularly like in here, and I couldn't agree more, based on the body of work that the favorite definitely is going to take some beating. But I was going to try to get a little bit cute and go with number 3, Fraudulent Charge. I was thinking she just might get a better setup than the last race against Street Loot. This is an improving runner for Team Gaudet, and I just felt like it looked poised to move forward again with 3 works since the last day. Nothing against Street Loot. I was going to go with Fraudulent Charge to pull the upset. How do you see it?
I have her close underneath. I am afraid of her because I feel like she's very eligible to move forward. She's going to make her first start as a 3-year-old. Obviously, hasn't done anything thus far, quite unexposed in a way. She's one of 2 horses to come that close to Street Loot. Street Loot just got beaten by a neck once, but Fraudulent Charge with that late close last time out looked really, really dangerous. And they didn't go that fast that day. And there's a fair bit more speed signed on today to set it up for her. Now, she was actually an interesting filly and really well managed by Lacey Gaudet, because her first time she went to the track, she was a late gate scratch. She's a bit of a nervous filly. They did a lot of work with her at the gate, but Lacey also told me that Johan rides her quite frequently in the mornings, and he said also he's ridden her in the afternoon as well, saying she's such a push button filly. She has that strong close, and you ask her to turn it up for you late, she's going to. So I'm Very fearful of the number 3, Fräulein Georgia. I have her in a close second to the number 5, Street, who's just, I've fallen in love with her throughout the season. Her body of work, as you mentioned, is so strong. She's danced every single dance, and she's so flexible. She can lead, she can stalk, she can take a tight gap, she can wait, and she's very feisty. She really puts it down to the wire. She doesn't back down from a fight, and actually she's got quite a temperament training in the mornings apparently as well. She wants to get out onto the track, and she's a really strong physical, really the ultimate kind of sprinter type, very well muscled. So she was always that early 2-year-old, and we were of course all wondering, is she's going to translate that into her 3-year-old season? And it seems like she has, because she made a wonderful start to the new year on the 16th of January, winning the extra heat stakes. Am I afraid of Fräulein George? Yes. So if I were to go in terms of A's and B's, I would use Street Loot and Fräulein George as A's, and then I would actually add in another filly here, the number 7 Little Huntress, possibly as a B for Brittany Russell. She's yet another filly coming in here, relatively unexposed, lightly raced as a 2-year-old, but huge performance last time out. She bounced from the gates, put on a show, and her fixtures make her very, very dangerous. And I think she's going to try and go to the lead here, but she's never seen a field like this before. So that's possibly the drawback. What's going to happen when they pressure her? Is she still going to be able to kind of cruise along like she did last time out?
We continue to talk about local heroes as we move on to race number 7, the Grade 3 Barbara Fritchie Stakes on the dirt. 7 furlongs, 4 and up fillies and mares, $250 in the pot this time around. And the question is, can Hello Beautiful do it again for the Russells? I'll let you kick this one off, Naomi.
I think she can. I'm going to go with her in this spot. I've tried to beat her in the past once or twice before and got burned. So I'm not doing that again. I had her in her last race in the Water Summer. Ever since she came back to Laurel Park and ran in the Maryland Million Distaff, she's really gotten back into her own, ran multiple career best figures, and she just really seems on song. And I spoke with trainer Brittany Russell, I think it was about 2 days ago, asking her how is she training going into this. And she said she's an absolute bear. She's a monster. She's training so well in the mornings. Of course, you never know what you're going to get on race day, but she's poised for yet another big performance. And to me, looking at some of the races she's ran in those open company stakes races, she's put away some tough sort of Kentucky, New York bred horses as well. So she's been able to put away these challengers on her home track. So they're continuing course here. I'm going to stick with her in this spot. But yet another Lacey Goddard trained filly. I like Don't Let Sweet Fool You, who's very, very fast there from gate 3. She's definitely going to go forward, sit on the rail. Javian Toledo and Lacey Goddard basically mentioned that this is a filly that absolutely loves being on the rail and just doing her thing in front. So she's going to try and take them all the way. So it'll be very intriguing to see if Hello Beautiful is going to sort of go with her and pressure her or even take over the lead, because Hello Beautiful has a lot of early speed as well.
Going to be an interesting thing pace-wise and decision-making-wise. The thing about Hello Beautiful definitely has that push-button look. I don't feel like definitely needs to be in the lead. Could potentially just sit off a rival like Don't Let Sweet Fool Ya and finish on past them. I don't have much to add. I mean, Hello Beautiful, very clear pick on form and figures, and I think is going to get a great trip in one of those scenarios or the others. One note I will make, morning line odds of 8-5 surely will be shorter. So international fixed odds people, if sometimes the bookies take their cues from that morning line, and if you can somehow get 2-1, 8-5, 6-4 even, I would say go ahead and bet. She would be a banker type for me at those kind of odds. Were there any others, Naomi, you wanted to mention as potentials to go with her?
I think it'd be interesting maybe for your B horses to use underneath the 1 Sharp Star and the 2 Club Card, 2 sort of different type horses. Sharp Star, huge work coming into this, 47 flat, 2 back in the go for 1, tremendous sort of stalking effort. And even before that, she won by a panel at Aqueduct in that allowance race. Just a filly that could jump up and do something because she's clearly in great form here. And then the number 2 Club Card, she's very honest. She has track experience now with 2 solid efforts in the Water Summer, in the Willa on the Move. Maybe a price play to use underneath because she comes with that late run. She is a sort of a bit more of a deep closer. So if these 2 fillies, Don't Let Sweet Fool You and Hello Beautiful, lock horns, maybe Club Card to pick it up if there would be a pace meltdown. Now, she has been well beaten by 2 of them before, so she would be sort of your price play if you're looking for value.
The graded stakes action continues in race number 8 with a scheduled post time of 3:53. The grade 3 General George stakes were on the dirt, going 7 furlongs for 4 and up. That same 250 in the pot. I thought this was a pretty interesting race. I landed on number 6, Share the Ride. This one could go wrong. Sometimes when horses don't show as much early speed as you expect, which was the case for me with Share the Ride last time, sometimes that's an indicator of going in the wrong direction form-wise. And if that's the case, well, I might be bemoaning this pick. But if that was a tactical decision, if that was a choice last time to rate and chase wide off a slow pace, then this one has a much better run coming. I feel like that was a bad trip under the circumstances, and with his tactical speed from basically any other race, any of the other recent races, could be on or near and prove the best speed in this spot. I like Share the Ride a lot. I did want to mention it that on the Timeform US pace figures, the 8 Arthur's Hope is clear. If Share the Ride is going the wrong direction and isn't going to show speed, maybe Arthur's Hope at a price to be out there on the front, the horse that needs to be talked about, and I might reluctantly, I might just oppose, or I might use defensively, as we say, as a B, is the Too Funny Guy. This is the figure horse, and that run last time might even be better than it looked on the bare form, wide on a day when I thought the ground loss did matter. But this horse is going to be short and be coming from far back and is unproven against open company. So I'm scared of taking Funny Guy at too short of a price. Mostly 6 for me, a little 8-2. Naomi, how do you see it?
See, so I actually have a couple of different horses to add here, but I feel like this is a field that if you want to go for a price, I think you should, because there's just a couple of scenarios that could play out. You mentioned with the speed maybe being the 8 Arthur's Hope going forward, because I did look at the Timeform pace projections as well. Share the Ride being forwardly placed or getting that nice stalking position. I had a little bit of interest at a price here, I'd say, in the number 3 Lebda as well as the number 4 Majestic Dunhill. Lebda, he has a good draw. He's going to be able to be more forwardly placed once again like he did last time out. Just came up a touch bit short there, but this is such an interesting horse. A bit of a story to him, and he's running the Haskell, he's running the Ohio Derby, he's running the Nashua and the Iroquois. This is a horse that's kind of traveled all over, and clearly they thought really, really well of. And he was he was a strong Miracle Wood winner. I was there that day, and he's that beautiful type looking horse, and he's kind of, I wouldn't say he hasn't performed because he tries, but he's kind of struggled a little bit. And I think that I like the move stretching back out to 7 furlongs. He ran over 6 the last 3 times and ran credibly last time out. 93 Bauer there finishing 3rd, did get beaten by Share the Ride, but I feel like Lebda stretching back out to that 7 has been campaigned over longer before. Could be an interesting horse at a price play here, working very gamely. 47-3 for Claudio Gonzalez. Now he always does ask them a fair bit when they work in the morning, so I wouldn't say if they're doing those incredibly fast times that would be in hand, but still a horse being able to do that. They come in fit. Lebda has a bit, like I said, better post position this time out than last time, where he just kind of had to come over to use his early speed. I think he can kind of move straight forward. And then Majestic Dunhill just kind of taking a little bit of a shot here. Really didn't have a great race last time out, to kind of put a line through there. George Weaver coming in here wouldn't be traveling a horse over if he didn't think it was a good idea. And Fergal Lynch coming back with a very strong ride. Now, Fergal Lynch was one of our leading riders before he got injured. Now he's coming back, and he's certainly ready to go, sort of chomping at the bit, especially with a couple of nice rides here. And Majestic Dunhill, I mean, if you look at that Bold Ruler win, now that was on muddy ground, but that's still a triple-digit buyer. Didn't go that fast, though, throughout. So as you mentioned, that can be a drawback, but at a price, I think morning line 10-1, I do believe on top of my head, something like that.
Yep.
I think this is a race to go with price horse, to be quite honest. As you mentioned, Funny Guy, definitely the horse that comes in here with terrific form, but I think he's very short on the morning line, like 9-5 or something. I don't want to take that in this race, because if he beats me, he beats me, but this is a race I feel that you could go with price horses and could possibly get a reward.
I like that idea. I mean, Lebda makes tons of sense, and you make a good case for Majestic Dunhill as well. As far as your official selections go, I'll list the 3 and the 4 as A's. Anything you want to put in there as B's, or do you think you'll just take a stand here and try to get one of those 2 in?
I'd add in Lakai. the good old boy that just hasn't, like, if you look at it last 2 years, just look at the byline. Heels clipped, lacked room. Last time out, the fire plug was outpaced from the get-go. He drifted kind of inwards, was hard-ass by Karamanis to kind of keep up with them, but that's not his style. He always likes to come with that late run. Kind of ran flat that day a little bit, but I feel like that beginning, he kind of bumped around a little bit. Said heels clipped. I had a look. I didn't find the exact bit where that happened, so it couldn't have been that bad, but clearly he wasn't really having fun that day. And if he's good, he's very good. If he comes with this, like a close run, like he showed in the De Francis Dash, giving his trainer, Damon Delodovic, his first ever graded stakes victory, which was a tough race, and he really nailed it down to the wire, ran a 95 Bauer that day, he can be very good. And then in the Frank Whiteley, he turned it up as well, only got beaten by no. So clearly, this is an 8-year-old, but when he turns up on the day, which he seems to still have, he can be very, very good. And he's had a month to get over that last race. And Damon is never too hard on them. But if you look at that work tab, 46-2, I mean, I don't know where that's coming from, because Damon is a trainer that wouldn't normally make them, do too much in the morning. So I'm wondering if this is a horse that clearly is firing on all 4 cylinders again.
There's a lot going on in this race, a lot of good price ideas. I guess we're mostly united in trying to beat Funny Guy. After talking to you about it, I think I'm going to go further in that beat Funny Guy direction as opposed to the defensive views, and try to mix a few more of your prices in there. Hopefully we didn't just knock Funny Guy right into the winner's circle.
Probably.
One more race I have you for, and it is the nightcap race number 9. 4:23 is the scheduled post time. We're on the dirt, going 6 furlongs, 3-year-old maiden special weight. It's a pretty interesting race. I thought it might be as simple as use 3 and be done with it. Of the 3 I wanted to use, I was going to press number 4, Hemp, the most. I felt like Hemp came out the best for me, having attended a fast pace on debut, earning a solid number in there, and the form is working out okay in that race. And I believe he's been gelded since too, which is interesting given that it was a pretty nice run. But I'm not sure what's going on there, but I think Hemp looks like one that I like the best in this nightcap. I'm also going to use in more of a backup role the 1 Imagine Hong Kong, who I felt like got a nice setup from that race, but the figure was good enough. And as a second-time starter, just looks like one that could improve. And number 3, Flat Cat, flashed a little bit of speed on debut. I always like to see that. And I had that as a good rail day at Laurel, and the winner was on that rail, wire to wire, Flat Cat chasing outside of that one. I don't know. I felt like Flat Cat was another eligible to improve. I was going to go mostly 4 and a little 1-3, but I'll ask you, how are we going to get paid in this pick 5?
I definitely would use the 4 Hemp and the 1 Imagine Hong Kong as well. Both first-time geldings, and I mean, the Whole Food first-time Lasix, so that's not really an angle anymore here. A different type of horses, but both very eligible to move forward. And then I kind of threw in the firster by American Pharoah, Pharaoh's Fury. Now, American Pharoah has been hitting at about 11% with firsters, so perhaps for a horse of his caliber, not as high as we would have liked to have seen. Marco Salazar hasn't been able to get his first-time starters, 3-year-olds and upwards in the winner's circle again, 0 from 4. But I just looked a little bit at the pedigree, very classy sort of family that this colt comes out of. Half-brother to Grade 2 San Felipe winner Here the Ghost, half-brother to Grade 1 Spinaway victress Manny Bavin. Is out of, at the time when he was born, an 18-year-old mare, so definitely the mare's getting a bit long in her teeth. But at this level, gate work coming into this 101, could be good enough. I mean, it maiden special weight levels, you could have a horse come in and perhaps do something like a 60 odd Bauer on the first time out. And he's drawn decently enough, drawn in between horses, which we kind of like to see. Would I use this as my top pick? No, but maybe underneath, just a touch bit of a price. But the 4 and the 1 would definitely be my A horses in this.
The case on Pharaoh's Fury is interesting. She's been a very productive dam. I think 9 have made it to the races, 7 have won. That can be the kind of subtler breeding angle that I've noticed the market doesn't really react to like it reacts to sire
because they don't go into the family that much. You would literally have to go into DRF, click on the mare, look at all the siblings, which we like to do, right? We sit here doing that. Majority of bettors aren't going to, and they're going to look at his works. They're going to look at the fact that Marco Salazar doesn't really hit with his firsters. That doesn't mean this horse can't do well, because as you mentioned, just a very deep bottom side to him.
Well, Naomi, this has been great getting a chance to talk with you about this. Hopefully, we can go 2 for 2 with a nice hit in the Stronach 5 later today. I got to remember to put those tickets in once we get scratches. What time do those Laurel scratches come in?
Normally, we get them in at 9:30. So
Okay.
pretty good. Yeah. 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning max. In general,
Right.
they're very good about it. Yeah.
Oh, well, that means I got to get to work is what that means. But
Yeah.
little bit more of this show to go first.
Actually, I can give them to you really quickly because I already marked them down. Leg A has Crouchelli is out. The number
Okay.
3, he's
Got it.
out. So I just have the Laurel scratch. I don't have any of the other Stronach
That's okay.
5.
I'll take the Laurel one.
And then leg C, I think that's it. Yeah,
Right.
that's it. No
Perfect.
other scratches. So that's it. Yeah, just one scratch in leg A.
We encourage folks to check out that show. Check out a very fun edition of Talk Racing to Me with a special guest, Jonathan Kinchin. This week, Naomi, Godspeed on TV and with your picks and wagering over the weekend. And we hope to see you again very soon. Up next on the show, we have a returning guest to the program. Always a pleasure to catch up with my pal, Brian Nadeau, who you know from many places if you're a horse racing fan at all. Brian, how are you doing today?
PTF, it's always a pleasure. Very good here in a wet and wild and soggy New Orleans, but we're making the best of it. Yeah, having a lot of fun this winter.
Not a city that really shows itself to best effect in the weather you've been having lately. What are we thinking in terms of the possibility for turf racing or versus sloppy dirt on Saturday?
Yeah, we're a work in progress. There's no doubt about it right now. We're slopping off on Friday. We'd like to hope and think we're going to have the turf on the stakes at least on Saturday. But I really think, Pete, it's going to be a game time decision. And, you know, there's rain in the area for the rest of later on Friday, maybe Friday night as well. So it's really going to be a game time decision. So I would just advise everyone to stay tuned, check Twitter and all those kind of good things. And hopefully we can get the 2 stakes that are in the later sequence on the turf, but we're going to have to see how it's going to shape out.
What do you do as an analyst, as a horse player in that situation? Are you already looking at those races to see how you might play them if they're going to come off? Are you more of an optimist than that and you just try to guard your time on that morning? You know, how do you deal with it?
Yeah, I think, Pete, being that they're stakes races, you have to hope that they'll stay on, but I also think you have to have one eye. At least, Blackberry Wine is also entered in the fairgrounds, which is our grade 3 stakes race. So obviously a horse like him is going to move up and you have to be cognizant of that. The good news is we're great with scratches. I mean, typically East Coast time will have scratches around 10:30, 10:40 in the morning. Tomorrow, maybe even, 9:45 with a noon post tomorrow here in New Orleans. So hopefully things will be very early and we'll at least know which way we're going, and the bettors and fans and handicappers alike will have plenty of time to decipher which way they want to go.
And folks can, of course, watch you on the simulcast feed. You'll be giving your up-to-the-minute thoughts based on how things are progressing on the day.
Yeah, Joe Kay and I will be on throughout tomorrow. 6 stakes races, 4 of them graded on just a phenomenal card. Louisiana Derby preview day, as we've labeled it. And, Pete, we'll talk about it in a second, I'm sure, but the Risen Star is hands down the best, most definitive Kentucky Derby prep to date. So really, really excited about that.
Excellent. I agree. It's going to be interesting. Well, let's kick off by talking about the stake that precedes the graded stakes. It's race number 9. This will kick off the late pick 5. Hopefully it will stay on the turf. It's the Alstall Memorial Stakes. We're going 1 mile and a 16th on the green, 4 and up, fillies and mares. And Brian, I'm going to have you kick this one off. This is going to be a trend throughout these races. I feel like my opinions, they're not super creative, but at the same time, I kind of like them. I think there might be some shorties who can get the job done. But what do you think is going to happen in this race?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that overall mindset, Pete. I mean, you look at these races and you're kind of just like, well, that horse has to run well, and then therefore that horse has to have a major say. And I think the horse is out of the Krantz, and that being Secret Message, first and foremost. She's a major player. Brad seemed to get her going the right direction last time. And I think at the end of the day, Pete, if she runs her best race, she's supposed to win this. I think it's a good sign that Al Stahl comes back with Delica. I mean, she didn't run last time well. Al didn't really know what to make of it. He said, I don't know. She came back. She scoped fine. She ate up. She's doing everything right. I just have to draw a line through it, run her back. And if you look at her form, she is a Jekyll and Hyde horse. She's good. She's bad. She's good. She's bad. That says tomorrow she's coming back to a good effort. Al was very, had no issues whatsoever running over a turf course with some give to it. So I think she's a major, major player as well. But, you know, as a handicapper, it's the old tread lightly angle because you don't necessarily know if she's going to fire. If she does, she's a major, major player. Room to finish is a Louisiana bred who ran very well last time. Can she duplicate it? Yeah, that's the question. But if you're looking a little bit outside the box, I think she's a major player. Other than that, you know, I think the two favorites are supposed to run very, very well. And Secret Message is, to me, if she's going to deliver her best race, she's supposed to win.
We see it exactly the same way. If you made me name three numbers, I would have named those same three, starting with Secret Message. It's just, you know, we've seen this movie before. What happens when Brad Cox get these ones going in the right direction based on how she finished up the last day. Just looks like the major player in the spot. And I was interested in Delica. The only thing I could come up with, I was digging a little bit on this one, just about the form of the Al Stahl barn, which seemed around the time of that race to be pretty, not very strong, especially by his own good standards. And the barn seems to have picked up since. So I was kind of willing to throw up my hands and just leave Delica in the mix. And I was hoping that maybe the dull last effort meant we could get all of, if not a little more than the 7-2 of the morning line. So
yeah, Al mentioned, he mentioned that there was maybe a little, something going through his barn that we're maybe not getting 100%. And you're right, Pete, because for about a month or so, some very well-meant horses weren't really firing, and you kind of said, boy, that's, it's such a good barn. What's the problem here? And they have cycled back a little bit, so maybe she runs better. The one horse I do want to mention is a little outside the box. Past the Plate, Joe Kay was on her last time in the Pago Hop. She closed from basically last into a crawl in a race where no one else really did a lot of late running. Don't sleep on her as maybe as a B at a price. Now she's stepping up again, but she was facing she was facing a good group last time, and she was totally against the flow and really ran well. So I look to her as if there is an upsetter, maybe it's her. I would toss her in there as kind of a B, Pete, as maybe a B level backup.
That makes sense to me. That was a nice $14 winner from Joe Kay the other day. And with horses like Room to Finish and Past the Plate, you're getting the horses who I think are going to be, the other horses who I think are going to be finishing really strongly, which obviously in turf racing, especially if it's testing ground, that can end up proving decisive. So that's how we'll get it kicked off. Now we'll move to race number 10. 5:44 is the scheduled post time. I should have mentioned that the Al Stahl Memorial kicks off at 5:12. Race 10 is the Grade 3 Mineshaft, mile and a 16th, 4 and up with 200,000 in the pot. I mentioned I've got some boring opinions in this sequence. This is one of them. I really like Maxfield. Felt like the last race was a prep that should be moved forward off of. The horse has worked well since. So I'll ask it to you, Brian. Is this a one-horse race?
Yeah, I want to quickly just mention, too, in race 9, we're kicking off a pick 5 that we expect a pool of about 400,000. I think we could surpass that, Pete, if everything stays together. And then, therefore, a 750 we're expecting in this late pick 4. It's tough to beat Maxfield. I think I kind of wanted to play against him, Pete. And then, you look through this field and you say, boy, not only is A, he by far the best horse, but B, as you alluded to, he's supposed to only get better off the Tenacious, and he showed newfound tactical speed that day. He's never been over an off track. Okay, maybe you can nitpick a little bit there. But I would expect him to move forward. Talked to Brendan Walsh the other day. He missed a work, but he's, 4 in a row straight since the Tenacious, and he's finally getting on a pattern now. You look at his form. I mean, he's only run back-to-back races once in his career, and that turned out pretty darn good in the Breeders' Futurity. And, you know, Blackberry Wine got loose and lonely in the Louisiana, and he couldn't hold off Title Ready. And no disrespect to Daly and Title Ready, but, you know, Maxfield is a whole other beast especially. So I think, Pete, I've said this many, many times. You and I have talked about this many times. If you single an odds-on favorite to start off a sequence, you really get the maximum amount of value as you can get, because it's a mental thing from the betting public. Oh, I don't want to be out after the first race. I'm not going to single this horse. And maybe you turn 3-5 into something like 9-5. I don't know, in this sequence. That's how I'm going to play it. Enforceable was awesome last time. And David Carroll said, you know, maybe he's finally turned the corner and we've got him going the right direction. And it was very fast too, Pete. Very, very fast. And to be honest, if you're a figure guy, you know, Maxfield has never run that fast. But I wonder if Enforceable can get back to it. It was kind of a funky race, a 5-horse field where he was very close early. I don't know if he pulls that kind of trip to in the Mineshaft. So I do think Maxfield is going to be very, very imposing in here.
Those are good points about Enforceable, and David Carroll, of course, the top Mark Cassie lieutenant who managing the string down there. If you made me pick a backup, that would be the one. But I think I'm going 90% through Maxfield in this spot. Let's move on to race number 11 as the parade of graded stakes continue in the Grade 3 Fairground Stakes, where on the turf we hope going 1.5 miles for 4 and ups. And Brian, I'll let you kick this one off. I had a couple ideas in here, nothing wildly clever. Where did you land?
Well, again, Pete, assuming we're on the turf, I think that's the MO of this race. Nothing wildly clever. Listen, if Factor This runs his best race, he's going to win. It's just point blank. He's going to win. He won this race last year. He started on his tear for Brad in this race last year. He likes the Stall Wilson 2 for 3 over this turf course. Now, conversely, if you're a little against him, you can say he did fire a dud last time at Gulfstream in the Fort Lauderdale. You know, I talked to him the other day. He said we were wide and chasing a really quick pace that day. So he's kind of, I don't want to say he's going back to the drawing board, Pete, but maybe back to the scene of the crime where, like I said, he started getting good last year. And, you know, this is a horse that was second in the Turf Classic at Churchill Downs and ran a cracker of a race. He has handled off turf very, very well. If you get the best of Factor This, he's going to win. With that being said, off a dud, maybe you don't get it. And then you're looking at a horse like Logical Myth, who is, 5 for 6 over the Stall Wilson. Since Joe Sharp claimed him, he's done nothing wrong. He keeps progressing up the ladder. This is the next step. Now he's running in a Grade 3 for the first time, but he's done nothing to show he can't handle it. And a lot of the horses he's beaten are back in here. So I think he's the most likely upsetter. I talked to Graham Motion the other day. He was excited to get Danceteria over here. He was impressed with the way he ran in his U.S. debut, in his first start for Graham. Thought maybe the 9 furlongs a little bit short, but conversely, maybe that's a little short, but now he's getting a turf course. If we are on the turf, not, cross our fingers, he's going to get a turf course with a lot of give into it. And he showed in Europe and Australia he can handle that turf course. And Pete, you look, he was beaten about 5 lengths by Enable and those gals over there. So that bodes well for him. I would expect to move forward. I think you have to use him as a little bit of the wild card, as a little bit of a price. Other than that, I think you're reaching. I think Seth Peace has talent. He's back on the turf. His U.S. debut on the turf was awesome, and then things kind of went awry. He almost visited the infield at Saratoga that day. Maybe his best race makes him a player. But as we started this segment, you said it, nothing outside the box here, I think, in the Grade 3 Fairgrounds.
I had the same numbers. I had it 8, 4, and 6. Factor This. I was just thinking, just needs to dole out that speed with a little bit more efficiency this time around. It'd be great to see him for his just overall development, have a little bit more of a push button look than that headstrong, I need the lead look. And that's why, even though the most likely winner, I did want Danceteria in the mix. Just felt like that was a big excuse last time in terms of not breaking great and a slow pace. It's weird looking foreign form, but there's enough in there that in the hands of a master conditioner, I definitely think he should be moving forward. And you mentioned about the 1 1/8, and you mentioned one reason why the stamina might come into play in terms of softer turf, the potential pace here. And in the factor this doesn't win scenarios, to me, there's only one factor this doesn't win scenario, and that's they just go too darn fast. And that'll bring Danceteria's stamina into play. So I love Danceteria as an alternative to factor this. I love them as partners. And I'm a Logical Myth fan, had them the last day, and I wouldn't mind having some backup there. But 864 for me.
You look at Danceteria, Pete, and you just say, well, that's not a Gulf. He's not a Gulfstream Park turf horse. I mean, it's as simple as that. And to see him run as well as he did, and yes, knock on wood, we're on the turf tomorrow and it's 9 furlongs. The way the race could play out, and the fact that the way the turf course will be, you can easily kind of close your eyes and say, yes, it's 9 furlongs. It's kind of a lot longer than that, though, when maybe they spring the latch.
That's the plan if you're going to have a big portion of your bankroll through the race on Danceteria, such as myself. Let's talk about race number 12. We've got Kentucky Oaks preview action in the form of the grade 2 Rachel Alexandra, 1 1/16 for 3-year-old fillies. I won't say it again. I'll just give the pick. I like Travel Column. I feel like she just showed a ton of talent last time. Did not break well. Didn't think she was in great position. Struggled to get a run at one point. Still won. Has had time to mature. To me, I'd love to hear if you have any inside info on it, but the last work sure looks like it signals readiness. I thought it might be as simple as Travel Column. I will have some backup with number 1, Claire Air. Just a length to find with the top one from that stake at the end of last year. Didn't have the easiest of journeys in that goldenrod either. Another who just looks to be working well, and some pedigree on this one out of cavorting. Bred to the purple. Logical for the Oaks Trail. One to keep an eye on. I'm going with Travel Column. I was going to back up with the 1, Claire Air. Anything clever from you in this one?
No, that's supposed to get you out, Pete. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt. The works, I will mention this. She's been working in company, Travel Column, with Essential Quality. And Brad told Joe Kay and I, she has more than held her own. And she's been giving as just as she's been getting. So that's part of those works. And I believe Brad said basically all the way back since she got started here at Fairgrounds, maybe even before the Alcibiades for that matter. I didn't think she had the brutal trip that maybe everyone did in the Goldenrod. With that being said, it was a seminal performance. She was awesome. The other thing I will add, and I agree with everything you said, Pete, I kind of have a feeling they might care a little more about winning today than Clairiere, and that's not to say that she's 110% to win the grade 2 Rachel Alexandra, but I think she might be a little tighter than Clairiere, but she certainly Clairiere seems the other one. She drew better. You mentioned the pedigree. In the fact that she was such a good second in the Goldenrod off just one win. I mean, I think that speaks volumes to her talent level. So she is clearly the main danger. I'll talk about a few of our gals, though. Charlie's Penny is out. I think you know that, and your audience probably knows that by now. Super Sensational, I thought, acquitted herself very nicely in not only her 2-turn debut, but her dirt debut as well. She had a little trip that day, so I think she's eligible to move forward. And Moonswag is another one, Pete, that ran very, very well, that was kind of forgotten about in the Silver Bullet Day. And I know it wasn't very fast on paper, but zoom up. Joe Kay and I watched it from the winner's circle, and we said, boy, she ran very well in her 2-turn debut for Tom Amoss. So there are alternatives if you want to try to get a little clever. With that being said, I think the gap from Travel Column and Clairiere is a pretty solid one to the rest of these gals. And Pete, honestly, it might be from Travel Column to Clairiere as well. I'm an A, B, and all the rest kind of kind of spot in here in a pick 5 that, as you and I talked about, and as we're kind of alluding to, is maybe a less is more. And you're a guy that's been known to punch this 4 or 5 times. That might be what we're talking about here today.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, be able to just try to bet efficiently along with the opinion and have a decent denomination to hopefully get us alive to the main event of the day, which is race 13, 7:18 Eastern for the grade 2 Risen Star Stakes, going 1 mile and an eighth, of course, for 3-year-olds. Important Derby prep race. Brian, how are we going to get paid in this Big 5?
Well, I'm stubborn, Pete. If nothing else, I'm going to come back to Mandaloun. I was disappointed. I thought, he was supposed to win the Lecomte. And then I took a step back and I looked at it on paper and I said, you know what? It was a pretty fast race. He took all the worst of it that day, out wide, chasing in what was his 2-turn debut over a couple horses that had seasoning at 2 turns over him. The blinks go on. He's been working in company with Wells Bayou. Brad said the last 2 works with the blinkers have been, off the charts. He's very excited about this horse. I'm going to come back to him. I think he probably will be favored. Keep Me in Mind is not here. Defeater will run in the allowance race. So everyone take note of that. I think everybody knows that already. I want to see it from Mandaloun, but I think I will, Pete. So I will come back to him. I was very, very impressed with Proxy. Do not sleep on him. He showed his toughness. He showed he is this kind in the Lecomte. Mike Stidham was over the moon with the effort. We talked to him the other day. He was very, very excited. And he felt that, to paraphrase, he basically said, I think my horse at 9 furlongs gets a lot of the best of it. And I'm not sure some of these other horses at 9 furlongs do. He draws well. He will be close. Where that is, I don't know. The Lecomte was kind of a turf race, Pete. I mean, we thought there was speed in there. No one breaks. Midnight Bourbon catches a flyer. The race is over. I think we'll see a different race on Saturday. Who goes, I don't necessarily know, but I don't think it'll be free up front. I will say this. I'm not picking him to win. I'm sure you saw the Springboard Mile, Pete. To everybody watching, don't just think Senor Buscador is some dressed up Remington horse who beat a lot of saps that day. He did it in fast time. He looped the field. I mean, he was going from 5.5 to a 2-turn mile. This is a serious horse that Todd Fincher's bringing over. I would highly recommend, at least if he's not an A, he's a definite B, B+. I will use him as an A, Pete. Obesos, another horse at a nice price that has done nothing wrong for Greg Foley. He's by Orb. So 2 turns in a sloppy track. Don't sleep on him either. This is an exciting Risen Star. It's
a very cool race. If I were grading this out for you, would that be that you've got the 11 and 5 as A's and the 2, 7 as B's? Does that sound about right?
Pete, I would probably go a little deeper only because the way we talked about this sequence, I can go deeper. So I would probably say 11 to 5 as A's, 6, 7 as B's. And honestly, if you want a flyer, Santa Cruiser, I don't know why he was out the back in the Lecomte. He will be a lot closer for Keith DeSormo. And, I think he's worth a look at a nice price as well.
All right, lots of good ideas in the Risen Star. We have the same top pick though. Mandaloun, I just felt like was worth another try. Yeah. Should be a decent price. I was hoping for fixed odds bettors. There's 7-2 available right now. I'd take that.
Yes.
Out wide and off a pace that was only honest at best. And you're right, it was probably more like a turf race. And as you pointed out, working well since with a creditable older runner in Wells Bayou. I feel like Mandaloun is definitely going to get the bulk of my action. But, I like this idea of trying to get a little bit clever with some of these backups that you mentioned. And some of these are going to end up being some rock solid prices. Certainly Santa Cruiser and Obesos. I wouldn't be surprised if you're going to get double-digit odds. I never mind being alive with the big ticket to the top pick and then have a bunch for the minimum amount to some of the live long shots. So that'll hopefully be the plan in this pick 5 on Saturday. Anything else to report from you, Brian? Anything else going on down there that folks should know about?
I'll just hit early on the card, Pete. I mean, obviously we're running some races that are in theory going to cycle some horses to the Oaks and Derby on March 20th. And there are some really good undercard races. So that's pretty cool. I would take note of some of them. There's a good allowance feature in the Friday finale that will get some horses to our Fairgrounds Oaks. And then also, Pete, don't forget, we run on Monday, Tuesday here. Even though it's, Mardi Gras not really happening, we run on Monday and Tuesday with good cards that will have, I would think, some big pools as kind of the only big game in town, so to speak. So we're excited about that as well. It's been a great winter here, and it's never too early to talk about Derby, and that's the cool thing about these kinds of races. Not only our Derby, but the first Saturday in May as well. So it's been fun, and it's starting to become front and center.
No doubt about it. It's scarily soon, really. What's the best meal you've had since you got to New Orleans?
They've got a Checkers/Rallies down here. That's pretty solid on the way home. Joe K. laughs his head off next to me. We've had some good oysters at where? Mr. Ed's in town. I mean, there's not a lot going on, Pete. You know the world we're living in. So we've picked our spots. We can walk to Bourbon Street, and we've had some good oysters, jalapeno oysters. They're pretty popping down there. So we've been minding our P's and Q's a little bit. Maybe Santa Fe here by the track with John G. Dooley for a cocktail or two. But we've kind of been nose to the grindstone, not only for work but for not really else a lot to do.
Yeah, well,
it's been
a good time to study
too, right?
form. For those of us that a good time is a glass of whiskey at home, a record on the turntable, and the form. It's maybe been a little bit easier for us than some of the other humans.
Without a doubt, and I know where you are. I don't have to tell you what to be careful and be healthy and all that stuff. So we're like I said, we're minding our P's and Q's here and having a heck of a good time doing it. The racing's been phenomenal. We hope we can, get put on as good a show as possible under extenuating circumstances here over the past few days.
Well, it's great catching up with you, my friend. Godspeed this weekend, and cheers.
PTF, we'll talk soon. Thanks, buddy.
We wrap up the show today with another member of the In the Money Media family. You know him from the Owner's Box podcast, from his various exploits as an owner with Little Red Feather Racing. We're talking about Billy Koch. Billy, how are you?
I'm great, Pete. Thanks for having me on. This is exciting, and really we appreciate being over on the network. Everybody's been such a pleasure. It really feels like a family, and I think that's great for myself and Michelle to be part of something that I think is really special. So I am appreciative of the opportunity, and I'm thankful, and I'm excited to get going today.
I want to just say one thing to the typical audience of this show. You might not think it. There's a lot of people who listen who are more just like dyed in the wool on the horse player side. There's plenty of people who own too, but there's some people on the horse player side who might see the Owner's Box and not realize how much great information there is for them over there. I feel like anytime you hear owners, especially some of the owners at the level that you've had on recently, talk about their thought processes, you can't help but learn something about handicapping and playing the horses as well. Would you agree with that assessment?
Most of the people, we had Bill Strauss on last week, and if you haven't listened, it's only a half hour, and he speaks so well about the game, the industry, the planning, what it's about, the excitement. But Bill is a major horse player. I mean, major. And yes, I tell people all the time when they're looking to possibly invest with Little Red Feather, or this is true for any partnership group or anybody getting into the game, you will learn more about your handicapping by being an owner. Because now when you're looking, you're like, why did they run here? What was the thought process that they're running here instead of that race I saw yesterday? And when you start thinking about it, and typical owners, where they place horses, where they might be live, where are they dropping, I think it's really important, and it's a vital part of anybody's handicap. It should be.
An overlay you can put over the PPs almost when you can think like the connections. Anyway, folks should check it out. The Owner's Box. Do us a favor, rate and review the individual feed over on iTunes. You can obviously hear it in the main ITM feed as well, but we appreciate your support in that matter. And we're so happy to have two talented broadcasters in Billy and Michelle joining us. But here today, not just to talk about the Owner's Box, but to go over 7 California races on Saturday. We're going to look at the late pick 5 at Santa Anita, and then the 2 races that help comprise the golden hour pick 4, including we got Derby prep points on the line with the El Camino Real Derby. Very excited to dive into this with you, Billy. And I have to say, in general, this is a really nice looking pick 5 at Santa Anita. A couple of these allowance races could be stakes as far as I'm concerned.
It's a really good card at Santa Anita on Saturday, Pete. And I'm the type of person, when I'm looking at this and trying to make a ticket for myself, determine where your value is going to come from. You can't just go deep in every race. And if you like a horse that's a short price in a sequence like this, it's okay to single or only go too deep in that race. But you have to find value somewhere if you're looking to have some kind of payoff. I'm sure people who listen to your show know that. There's 2 types of people. You could just put a ticket in and say, "Oh, I hope I hit." Right. But if you're betting a $100 ticket and you hit for $250, it's like, okay. I want to put $100 in and win 4,000. Like, that's always my goal. Is how is this 50-cent pick 5 going to pay for 4,000?
Balancing risk and reward and trying to create value. Sometimes it's a narrow ticket. You'll spend that same 100 because you'll absolutely clobber the combinations you really like. But one way or the other, you have to think of it in terms of risk and reward. This sequence kicks off with race number 5. 5:42 is the Eastern Billy post time on Saturday night. Little inside joke there. We are going 6.5 furlongs on the turf. Optional claimers, non-winners of 2 lifetime, and we'll let you kick this one off. How are we going to get this pick 5 started?
Well, interesting. We talked about owners and how what their philosophies are. And you look at Chaos Theory, he's the 6. He's the morning line favorite at 9-5. He gets Rispoli, who more than any other jockey, even Pratt and Rosario on the turf in Southern California, is going to get bet. You look at this horse, he wins the Green Flash down at Del Mar, runs 4th in the Woodford trying to get to the Breeders' Cup. This horse was in Kentucky to run in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. Okay. Why is he in for 62.5? That's your question. Right. It's Sadler and Horonis. They have a ton of horses. The horse is 6. He's out of conditions. Okay. So really, where else is he going to go? And so if you look at it that way, he is strictly the horse to beat. He's the fastest. I'm a Thoroughgraph guy. I don't know if a lot of your players play Thoroughgraph. I use Thoroughgraph. His top numbers are 2, 3 back. He runs 4s. He runs 5s. This is by far the horse to beat, but he's also going to be a very short price. So this is one of those where, especially as the first leg on your ticket, are you deciding, do I single Chaos Theory here and just bite the bullet and I know I'm going to go after prices later? Or do I try to beat this horse on the drop? Maybe he's not maybe he's not the same horse. I mean, he was defeated last time. I know Hembry didn't come back to run well off of that, the Hernandez Stakes. And he was a little flat that day. So that's your decision. For me, I like the 3. And it's highly distorted. He's 5-2. It's my good friend Mike Pipey. He's one of our trainers. Pipey has been a dynamic this year. He's really, really doing well. I think he's in the top 6 of the trainer standings. Abel Cedillo takes over for JJ Hernandez, and Cedillo's best on the lead. He just is. If you know Southern California racing, he rides for Baffert. When he gets out there, he's very, very tough. You tell me. I have the question for you. Who's going with this horse?
It's going to take a jockey getting aggressive, because on pace figures, highly distorted might well just be alone up there.
Exactly. And he's won at the distance. He's won at this track. He's going to be probably second choice. So at least you're getting a little bit of value. But I think this race really comes down to, is highly distorted good enough to hold off Chaos Theory? You could make a case for Ghoul. I don't particularly like his pattern, and I don't think he's that fast. Obviously, Rosario and Pete Miller, I talk with my sister all the time. My sister plays a pick 5 every day, early, late, everything. And I say, just if you see Pete Miller and Rosario, just put them in. Like, just spend the money. In this case, I probably wouldn't. I would probably maybe go too deep, or maybe just try to beat Chaos Theory and hope Highly Distorted is able to go wire to wire.
I see it very similarly. I was going to hope that Chaos Theory could lay close enough to do a little bit of the own dirty work, and that he had enough in hand on figures and form to make that a winning trip. But Highly Distorted, a very likely upsetter. And you asked that question about the spot for Chaos Theory and whether or not the drop can be perceived as negative. And I'd love your opinion as somebody who has to make these calls, I just see him as a classic tweener for whom those graded stakes are maybe, he fits, but he's maybe a little bit too tough, and then just ends up overqualified for this level, but it's still the right spot. So it didn't bother me. My first thought was to play Chaos Theory about 80-90% of my money, and tiny little backup Highly Distorted with my strongest opinions going forward. And then if it blows up, just come back and play the pick 4. But
yeah, I see that.
What do you think at the end of the day?
You have to go back, though. If you look, they claimed Chaos Theory in June of last year for 62.5. So it's not necessarily a drop,
right?
Because Sadler was able to put him in good spots, and maybe he improved him a little bit off Brendan Walsh. When Brendan Walsh is a good trainer, I mean, it's not, so I'm kind of not looking at this as a drop. I'm looking at this race more of how the pace is going to set up. And if Highly Distorted is able to just cruise out there on an easy lead. I mean, last time he went 22-3, went 44-3. I don't know who's going to push him in this race to make him go any faster than that. So if he gets loose on the lead, especially on the Santa Anita turf course. Now, I know lately these turf sprints have been favoring closers, but when you look at just purely pace scenario of this race, I think he's going to be tough to run down. I think Chaos Theory is going to be coming late. So look, if you want to spend the money and go too deep, you go too deep. Cover yourself.
Let's talk about race number 6. We're on the dirt, going 5.5 furlongs, 4 and up, $32,000 claimers down to 28. I really like number 7, Captain Scotty, in here. I thought looks like the best speed in a race that doesn't have a ton of it. Ran in a stake last time. Back on Lasix. That's an angle that we could have talked about with Chaos Theory as well. Yeah. That idea of in the stakes, there isn't Lasix. Back in these races, there is another potential difference maker. I really thought Captain Scotty looked like tough to down in the 6th race at Santa. Perhaps you can get a little more creative.
He's the best horse in the race. He's 6 for 21 lifetime. He's won at Santa Anita, and he's fast. And he's Pete Miller and Ricky Gonzalez. Those guys team up a lot. I just think his price is a little too low for me, and I wouldn't put all my eggs in his basket because I believe that there is other speed in here. If you look at, you might look at a horse like the 8 with Jessica Pfeiffer. Jessie's the best. She's like my daughter I never had, but she goes to the lead, and Coroner's a speed trainer, and this horse comes out of very, not necessarily fast heats at Los Al, but I think she's right outside of Captain Scotty. I think Fratelli has some speed. Not that Pratt's going to go. Oil Can Knight is on the inside today. He usually likes to be on the outside, but he's 5 for 9 at Santa Anita and 8 for 22 lifetime. He looked really good winning last time. I think he's going to show some speed. I'm going to give you a 10-1 shot morning line. The 9, howbeit. I go right back to Cedillo. Doug O'Neill's been pretty hot of late. Thoroughgraph wise, if you throw out his turf race last time and his turf race going a mile and his long race, he has a beautiful pattern that's heading towards he ended the year with 3 straight 7s as a 3-year-old. And I do understand that those races, the 50 and the 40 that he ran in, were straight 3-year-old races. So obviously this gets tougher when you start running against older. But this horse figures to get a really good trip, sitting right off the speed. He draws outside. And at 10-1, all he needs to do is take a little bit of a step forward in his second start as a 4-year-old, but he's back doing what he wants to do, and that is sprint on the dirt. So I think that's a really, really nice price play in a race filled with contenders, but no true standout.
It's a very compelling case for one listed at double-digit odds on the morning line. If I asked you to list a few who you'd want to include as your backups, what would that list look like?
I mean, definitely you have to use Captain Scotty, but you're not going to get a price there. I don't particularly like Fratelli, although, Lerner does go to Pratt, and I always like to look at horses where a jockey gets back reunited with the horse. So Pratt rode this horse four times ago, almost won that day in a Calbred one of the band. This horse, the Forest Fratelli, has been favored in 6 straight races. You rarely see that. Now, and he's not like a win machine. He has won a third of his starts. He's 3 for 9. I don't necessarily like him. I think, I could make a case. I would have to probably use Oil Can Knight just on his current form, even though he's stepping up in class, Captain Scotty. And then, but my key would be How Be It. And I would go with that direction and kind of, especially if I'm going to use Chaos Theory and Highly Distorted in the first leg, I want to come back with something to try to get me a price.
Yeah, you can get separated with a runner like the 9, How Be It, for sure. Let's move on to race number 7, 646 is the Eastern Post Time. We're on the turf going 1 1/8 for 4 and up. Easy for me to say. Calbred, first level allowance runners. Billy, how are we going to get through this leg?
This is a really, really tough race. This is it's a wide open race where all of them look alike and all of them have run each other. So when I attack a race like this, I have to say to myself, okay, who's going to take that next step forward? The interesting thing about this race is it's also at 1 1/8, and it's further than a lot of these horses have run. You rarely see Calbreds, and especially in a one other than Calbred, go that far. So it was really tough to kind of really narrow this race down. And I think if you're playing the ticket, especially if you're going to, possibly go low and use a horse like How Be It at 10-1, you can spread a little bit in this spot. And I would probably advise that. I think a horse like Mr. Brownstone on the outside is interesting at 12-1 on the morning line for Pipey. He paired 9s coming into this. And Pipey, I talked to him actually this morning. He thinks he messed this up. He thinks this horse wants to go 2 turns. But he would much rather run 1 mile than 1 1/8. I think 1 1/8 is probably just stretching this horse a little bit, but he comes out of sprints and he's probably going to have the lead in here, which just makes him a little bit dangerous. So I would even have him on your ticket just as a price. Clayton Delaney, I know this horse very well. In fact, I bet him last time when he was 4-1 and lost by a nose to Offshore Fair. In that race, that was when the track was really speed favoring and speed biased, the turf course right at the beginning of the year. And this horse is quirky. He doesn't switch leads. He runs all over the place. If you watch the head on of that race, you'll be amazed of where he was. I think he's the most likely winner because I don't think he's going to have a problem getting the 1 1/8. And we all know how good Phil is. He's awesome right now. Again, I land on Cedillo, which is strange. Every race seems like Cedillo.
Why handicap when you can just bet Cedillo?
And here are the horses. There's 2 horses that I think are interesting. Other horses that I think are interesting. Kakistocracy, I've known this horse from his debut because I owned the winner of that race, and that was Shandling. And this horse came like a bat out of hell that day. Then he won his next start, and I thought this horse was going to be a really standout Calbred. Didn't run for almost a year from February 20 to January 21. He had to need that race. And if you watch that race closely, and I went back and watched the video last night, he started to run down the lane. And Carla Gaines, I don't know what her stats are. First off, second off is not that great, but she is hitting at 16% this year, which is pretty good for Carla Gaines. Drayton Van Dyke is in the Pratt, Brad Pegram mix. Could he be a little motivated this weekend to show off his stuff? I think that's an interesting price. Again, a price play at 8-1 because he got beat 2.5 lengths by One Fast Bro, Clayton. They were all in the same race. Camelita's Man, they're all in the same race. So if you think that race is strong enough and going to win, you probably need to use a couple of them. If you don't, you can look at a horse like Mr. Brownstone at 12-1. You can even look at a horse like Tiz Hot and Dusty, who runs fast enough numbers, but they're on the dirt. Can he run on the turf? And that's where you have to question it. So I'm saying this race is probably a spread.
Big spread. I'm going to force you to grade your selections into sort of mains and backups just for academic purposes. But I'll give my thoughts. And I was with you so much of what you said. And I actually came around to Tiz Hot and Dusty, who I've just felt like was interesting on the switch to green. Very well rated on the Timeform US breeding ratings. And just, from I don't know nearly as much about breeding as you do, but just looking through this pedigree, it looked like turf was within the grasp potentially. The only 2 real life turf races were sprints. just looks to be working well. I thought maybe had a sneaky chance to be the best speed in the spot. I wanted to keep Tiz Hot and Dusty on side. And then the other one you mentioned as well, the 5, Cacristocracy, should be a good price. And I just felt like ran okay in that common race, all things considered. That was a race where there wasn't a lot of passing going on. And this horse, while 8th, was, you could throw a blanket over them at the end. And a lot of times you see those blanket finishes, you think, oh, it's not a good race. But the form of that race is actually working out okay with a couple of next out winners. This is just a guess, really, on the second off, the long layoff angle. But I wanted to have my main opinions be the 1 and the 5. And then I felt like you could back up with a whole bunch, the 3, 4, and 7 being the main ones I wanted to mention. How about you if I asked you to grade this race into sort of A's and B's? Well, how would you see it?
I probably would put A's over Clayton Delaney just because of the distance. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to get it. And I think he's probably the most logical winner. But again, not a big price. I would use Cacristocracy up there as well. I think he's going to run better. I don't think he's going to mind the 1 1/8. And I agree. And that would be kind of probably my A's. And my B's would probably be Tiz Hot and Dusty. I like the sheet on Carmelita's Man, but he comes back on very short rests. And he was defeated by many of these. He kind of ran in spots that day, and that was for J.J. Hernandez. Tyler Bayes won on him, comes back to win again. So I would probably make Tiz Hot and Dusty, Carmelita's Man, and I'd probably throw in Mr. Brownstone as a bomb as in my B level. I'm not a big fan of Tropical Terror. He's had so many chances at this level. Don't know. Talk about management. I have no idea why they're running in the Turf Classic against horses like North County Guy and Acclimate. That's just a waste of a race, in my opinion. But he did get a good number in that race. He comes back to, I just don't like him coming way, way off the pace in a race that doesn't look like they're going to go that fast.
We move on to a pretty loaded looking grade 2. Race number 8 at 7:20 Eastern is the Santa Monica Stakes on the dirt, going 7 furlongs with 200,000 in the pot. I'm a little boring here. I'll go first. Number 4, Hard Not to Love, was hard for me not to love. Maybe just too close to a fast pace last time. Full field here should help the pace to set up for this one. I feel like a return to previous closing tactics could deliver a winning race for this one. And then I thought the obvious alternative was the 5, Kahira. Should be in front of the top one, but not a need the lead type. Maybe can sit and pounce. Another I wanted to use. Didn't have a strong opinion. I was kind of looking to get through, but I figured if I could be as narrow as 2 runners, I might not lose too much equity. 4 and 5 for me in the Santa Monica. Who's it going to be, Billy?
It's interesting. Hard Not to Love won this race last year. This is a filly who's very interesting because she has one eye. She struggles to go in the gate. She expends a lot of energy, but she's best sprinting, and she is by far the fastest horse in this race. She's run 3 -1 sprinting, and on her day she wins. She's 5 for 10 at Santa Anita. She's 2 for 3 at the distance. Like I said, she won this race last year. I'd be very scared to throw her off your ticket. I think Kahira ran really well last time. I was very impressed in her victory in the Kalukan Queen, able to sit and finish, and she gets Rosario back. Rosario wasn't supposed to be here. He's supposed to be at Oakmont. And I think that's a big deal. I think he fits this kind of horse. He's taught her to relax and can finish. And I would certainly use her. Well, the one I found most interesting is actually right outside of her, and that's Golden Principle. She was defeated by Fair Maiden, who's going to be beat. Fair Maiden 4-1 when she won, and she won the La Brea last time out quite easily. Golden Principle was 13-1 that day. But if you look at her pattern, she paired 6s, then she runs a 3 in the La Brea, comes back. This is her 4-year-old debut. Horses are supposed to now go through that number. You get a guy named Mike Smith. I don't know if you've heard of Mike Smith, but he wins graded stakes races.
I've heard a few whispers that he might be up and coming rider.
Yeah, he's once he starts to figure it out, he'll be okay. Look, Mike Smith, he's not. You're not going to bet Mike Smith possibly on your $32,000 claiming race from the race. He's just not going to be in that race. But when you look at a grade 2, and all of a sudden I get Baffert, I get Smith, I get a filly that should improve her first time in her 4-year-old year, and I get 8-1 in the morning line, and she's probably going to be higher. I would assume she's going to get overlooked. I think Hard Not to Love will get bet down. I think this filly is 7-5, 8-5. I think Fair Maiden and Kiara are going to get bet down, and I think Golden Principle is the one that people might forget about. I would also like Merneath, another Baffert, but I don't know about the rail draw here. She bounced pretty badly from that Keeneland race to the La Brea, And I thought she was going to run big that day, and she just couldn't put it together. But she's also a nice filly. And that's kind of, I think that's as deep as you need to go. I agree with you that I don't think you need to go more than 2 or 3 here to try to get the winner.
If I made you do that same exercise, grading these into A's and B's, how would you do it?
I'd probably make Golden Principle an A, and I'd use Hard Not to Love and Kahira as B's.
All right, there you go. So we'll go 6 with 4, 5. And then let's move on to our last Santa Anita race. I should have mentioned with the stake, the Santa Monica, that's where the Golden Hour Pick 4 kicks off with its higher minimum, low takeout, player-friendly wager. We encourage everybody to take a look at. And then the Golden Hour Double. Have you had much success with the Golden Hour bets?
I lose every time. I'm terrible. You know what I am, Pete? I'm a very good handicapper, and I can tell you who's going to win or be in contention. But when it comes down to me to actually make the bet, I'm the worst. It just always happens that way, right? It's just terrible.
You've got amazing institutional knowledge that's been on display throughout this segment. So,
yes, you'll see. These horses will all run well, and then you're going to text me and go, "Billy, you hit the pick 5," and I'm like, "No, I didn't. I didn't bet it. I singled this one."
Amazing. Well, we wrap the Santa Anita portion of the card with race number 9. 752 is the post. A mile on the turf. 4 and up optional claimers. Non-winners of or second level allowance, I really should say. We've got a stakes quality field, and you've got the favorite, Billy, in Scarto. Obvious claims on form and figures. Is the post a little worrisome? How do you see this one playing out?
If Scarto had drawn inside, I would say he's an automatic single in here. The horse is training unbelievably well, better than he even was training going into like the Twilight Derby, where he only got beat 1.5 lengths by Smooth Like Straight. He's the fastest horse in the race on paper. That's the only thing stopping me from just saying, "Hey guys, this is one of those locks." Is the post, because going a mile at Santa Anita from the 10 hole, you're going to lose ground. And thankfully, Rispoli jumps back aboard. He loved this horse when he won twice at Del Mar last summer and just had to jump off to ride Smooth Like Straight. And to be honest, I don't blame him. Smooth Like Straight's a really, really good horse. Almost won the Grade 1 Hollywood Derby. I think the competition Scarto's been facing is better than a lot of these have been facing. And I think he's the horse to beat. And I think he's going to run big. I couldn't stop anybody from singling him. Personally, I think the horse we're going to have to run down is Award Winner. And it goes back to what we were talking about in the first leg of the pick 5, where I just don't see a whole lot of speed in here. This horse ran really good. We know Bordertown. I thought Bordertown was a big-time stakes horse early in his career. Then he kind of faded. Then they gelded him. He came back and won this race. This is Bordertown. And then he came back and ran 4th the other day in the stake at Santa Anita, the Thunder Road, to Hit the Road, who's a monster. So how good is Award Winner, and can he get loose on the lead? Of course, it's Cedillo again. I don't know how that's happening. I don't usually look at the jockeys, but that's the horse to me, as the owner of Scarto and someone who will I have to single him in my pick 5. That's the horse to me that I worry about that we'll have to run down. And other than that, I think it's a bunch of good horses. Mind the Gap for Kristen Mulhall hasn't been out in a while, since August, but has some decent numbers. I looked at Goalie. I actually had a conversation with Phil this morning, because Goalie is a half to Midnight Storm. And so we were talking about Goalie, and he just, to be honest, he thinks that 1.25 miles, 1 mile and 3/8 is probably better for Goalie. But he does get Pratt, and he has a big late kick. I think that's a good tri-filler, exacta horse. But Scarto's probably a single for me, and the horse I would look out for is Award Winner.
I was worried you were going to get mad at me for putting Award Winner on top in this spot.
No, but it doesn't sound mad. Listen, man, you know how hard it is to win? I mean, it's so hard. I tell people all the time, you don't have to like my horse. It's okay.
That's great. Well, you made the case pretty well for Award Winner. Should be there or thereabouts in terms of pace. Second start for a good, these days under the radar trainer in Dave Hoffman's. I just hope he can avoid, from his own point of view, has to avoid dueling on pace figures. There are a couple who could give him a tussle on the front end.
Do you think Indian Peak is fast enough to go? Do you think Tayshawn is going to go from his 11 hole?
Tayshawn almost has to go from there,
I think
right?
so,
if you're a speed horse out there.
I think so too. I do.
And Mind the Gap, I just thought had surprisingly fast pace figures, and also just has that. Mind the Gap has an angle, and I wanted to ask you about this because I'm afraid this might also piss you off. But JK and I are always talking about just liking East Coast turf form. shipping out west, and that these horses, and award winners, another one, they can sometimes find themselves out west and make it a little bit tough on the locals. So I kind of wanted Mind the Gap in the mix somewhere. I liked award winner, and obviously I'm not going to let Scarto beat me. So those were going to be the three for me. But what about that angle? Is that something you look at? Do you ever look at buying East Coast turf horses for the?
Absolutely. I mean, I go back to my friend Mark Martinez from Agave and Phil D'Amato, and Mark made that deal with the Samsung guys, and he brought over Say the Word and the other horse, the name escapes me. He won really impressively at Del Mar and then went the Pegasus, or maybe that was Say the Word. There's another one that he bought two of them. It's just a different style of racing. I don't know if it's better or worse, because you also have all the expensive Chad Browns, and you have Graham Motion, you have Clement, you have all these trainers back there that really are prototypical classic turf trainers. So I think it's hard to improve those horses when they come out, but I think it's a lot of surface. The tracks in Southern California are harder than, I'm saying the turf tracks are harder than the ones back east. So I don't know enough about Mind the Gap to know if they brought him over because he got over faster ground. That could very well be the case, and he could move up several lengths and win this race, no question. I don't know that answer. That's something that you need to kind of know more about pedigree. And I mean, this horse is a street sense out of an AP Indy. I mean, it screams dirt. So what's this guy doing on the turf anyway? So yes, again, this is ticket building. So depending on where you went early and how you want to get paid late, because if you just use Scarto, I mean, Scarto's going to get bet. He's going to be 2-1, 9-5. So if you think you can beat him, try to beat him. Like I would look at your other ticket and see where now, okay, I know I'm trying to beat Scarto at 9-5. So now I'm going to go back and I can use Hard Not to Love. I can, in the first race, only use Chaos Theory, and maybe I throw in the Gould, the other Pete Miller, at 7-2. So you know what I'm saying? So that's how I kind of read the sequence to where I'm going to start and where I'm going to finish.
Let's talk about these Golden Gate races. We're running out of time. We don't want to give them too short shrift, though, especially not this first one we're going to talk about. Race number 8, 7:33 Eastern is the scheduled post time for this 1 1/8 stake race. It's the El Camino Real Derby. And I thought that with as much pace as there seemed to be signed on here, it could set up for a closer. I think the best closer is going to be number 9, Ron Bauer. When last seen, he was making a good impression late in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Now, granted, the race was probably run to suit him that day, but I just think this also might be kind of a late developing type. I like the looks of those recent workouts. Mike McCarthy, not somebody known for, artificially putting speed into his horses. I actually feel like the morning line odds of 8-5 would be acceptable here. And I feel like for international listeners and viewers who have the chance to get fixed odds, you might get a better price than that. I'm going to try to get out of this one with Ron Bauer. What do you think, Billy?
I completely agree with you. He's the best horse in the race. No shame in running 5th in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, but he had also run well on turf. And as you know, I don't have to tell the people who watch this show, the synthetic kind of favors those turf horses that can go that way. I thought Javinica was really interesting. I ran 3rd to her with Carpe Fortuna in the Blue Northerner, and I thought she was going to win that day. In fact, a lot of people did. She was sent off at 9-5. I think it's interesting that they go up and take on the boys with the China Doll coming. Here's an ownership thing with the China Doll coming for $100,000 on March 6th, and they're going to go up north and run in this race. Now, does that mean the filly's doing really good? They think she'll love synthetic because it's $100K, and I don't think she's going on to the Triple Crown races. So, it is Godolphin. That's one of those weird things. I think she's going to run big. I think I could just get out of it with 7-9.
Gotcha. 7-9 for you in the El Camino Real. You are right. That is a very unusual spot for Javonica. Very curious to hear what the scoop is on that one. But let's talk about this nightcap at Golden Gate, the final race of the Golden Gate. Pick 4 and double. 8:07 is the scheduled post time. We're on the all-weather going 5.5, 4 and up. 20,000 claimers down to 18. Second level allowance conditions apply in this spot. I was going to go with number 1, Whoa Buddy, coming here second off the long layoff. Felt to me like the last day seemed. Oh my goodness, what's going on with me today?
You were saying, "Whoa, buddy."
Speed seemed to be holding well. And this one lost position mid-race and just didn't really fire. But Whoa Buddy fits off some of the back races. And the other I wanted to mention that's a guess is the 4. Too bad JK isn't on to talk about one called RMC Hook'em.
There you go.
Comes here off the long break. Dangerous if ready. Has tactical speed. Has numbers that fit. Don't know what to make off the layoff. But 1 and 4 were the numbers I was going to try to use to hit these golden hour races. How about you, my friend?
My friends are going to laugh. Because when we look at a race like this, and it's a cheaper race, it's at Golden Gate. There's only one way to go, and you just go to the Wonger. You go to 5. Don't tease the Tiger. You just say, okay, you know what? Wong wins, and he's probably going to win this race. This horse hasn't run since May. It's interesting that they protect him. This is one of those rules where if they leave at the same level, you can come back. He's not in for the $20,000 tag. I kind of like that when guys do that. I mean, I think it's tricky how to read that race, but in races that are kind of wide open like this, I turn to guys that win. And I'm not a big, I don't look at Golden Gate that much. I'm kind of primarily focused on Santa Anita and some of the bigger East Coast tracks. But I know Jonathan Wong, and I know he has his horses ready, and I like that he protects them. So I'd go with the 5. Don't tease the Tiger.
I have no problem with that, and I should have probably remiss in not mentioning, at least as a backup, just given the guy wins races in bunches. He's been on our airwaves before.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, we've got to bring him back.
Not as good as Williams Bodley.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Billy.
Swift hitter. That's my guy.
Shout out for him, and I'll take it. Flattery will get you everywhere, as we like to say around here.
This is so much fun.
Good.
When do we do this again?
Let's do it again. Anytime you want. We got to bring JK to the party next time.
I love JK.
But I love a lot of the tidbits. I mean, the picks are great, but a lot of the tidbits, I mean, I feel like you can't help but listen to somebody who follows the circuit as closely as you and is as intimately involved and not like learn something that's going to help you, hopefully not just today, but going forward. So we'll definitely do this soon. We'll encourage folks one more time to check out the Owner's Box. And
check out the Owner's Box.
And we will thank you. We'll thank you for your time today, my friend.
Thank you for having me, Pete. Appreciate it. And it was a pleasure. And I wish everybody out there good luck this weekend. You can use my horses, but bet better than I do.
I love it. And that's going to do it for this edition of the show. We'll wrap up by thanking Billy, Brian Nadeau, and Naomi Tukker one more time. We'll thank all of you, the listeners and viewers, for your support in making these shows so much fun to do. We'll thank our founding partners, the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. You can support their fantastic cause. I really can't speak today. Cause over at trfinc.org/players. I still have Christmas on the brain, and it's already the middle of February. Also, our friends at 10 Strike Racing for all that they do. Another one of those connections like Little Red Feather that we tend to root for over here on the In the Money Network. This show's been a production of In the Money Media. Our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is Jonathan Kinchin. We've got DJ Unstable himself, Craig Gorbanoff, pushing all the right buttons. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatal. May you win all your photos.
Just me